On today's podcast, we sit down with Michael Epstein, head of marketing at Good Talk and creator of the influential Hey Mike newsletter. Michael brings his real-world experience from real estate to the music industry, sharing essential lessons on juggling multiple projects, the unwritten rules of communication, and the power of documentation. We dive deep into why digital marketing skills are so crucial for artists today, the underrated value of Twitter, and what every artist needs in place before releasing music. Michael also reveals the secret to building a lasting career, the importance of proactivity, and how knowing when to say no can change your trajectory. If you're a musician, manager, or aspiring industry insider, you can't afford to miss this conversation. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight.
Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we sit down with Michael Epstein, head of marketing at Good Talk and author of the highly regarded Hey Mike newsletter. If you're an artist, musician, or anyone looking to navigate the complexities of today's music industry, this is an episode you won't want to miss. We dive deep into the true power of digital marketing and why platforms like Twitter might be the most underrated tools for building both relationships and audiences. Michael reveals the most common mistakes artists make when launching their careers, the importance of defining your personal brand before releasing music, and the art of taking control of your own story in a landscape flooded with 150,000 new songs every day. Plus, we discuss the value of internships, what really separates those who land jobs from those who fade away, and how small, consistent actions lead to breakthroughs, even when it feels like progress is invisible. Whether you're just starting out, feeling stuck, or looking to level up, Michael's insight and strategies will inspire you to stay motivated, take proactive steps, and commit to a lifelong journey in music. So stay tuned. This conversation might be the game changer for you and your music career. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey Insiders, ready to crush it in the music world? Whether you're an artist, band, or future music biz pro, MUBUTV's personalized coaching is your secret weapon.
We'll work with you side by side, sharpening your songs, building your brand story, locking in your ideal audience, and powering up your social media game.
Starting fresh or ready for the next level, we cover everything. Live shows, marketing hacks, branding, all tailored just for you.
Flexible coaching packages let you decide what fits your time and budget. Single sessions or discounted bundles that make investing easy.
Imagine the boost after just one session. Clearer goals, smarter strategies, and unstoppable confidence. Get started with a free 15-minute discovery call at book.mubutv.com. That's book.mubutv.com. Let's make your music career unstoppable. Hey Insiders, are you ready to take serious control of your music career? Whether you're dreaming of getting signed, finding the perfect artist manager, or landing your music in movies and TV shows, MUBUTV has you covered with 3 essential free guides.
First, learn how to contact A&R the right way. The insider secrets to approaching executives without burning bridges and with confidence.
Next, discover how to attract the right artist manager, when to start looking, what to expect, and how to find someone who truly believes in your vision.
And finally, unlock the world of sync licensing with how to pitch to music supervisors the right way. Get your music placed in film and TV, reach new audiences, and open up exciting revenue streams.
These guides are packed with real-world advice, practical steps, and the do's and don'ts every artist needs.
If you're listening on this podcast or watching on YouTube, just check the description below to download your free copies now. This is your blueprint for turning dreams into reality. Don't miss out.
Hi, this is Matt Jones, CEO at Medallion, and you're listening to the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured guest is Michael Epstein, head of marketing at Good Talk and author of the highly regarded Hey Mike newsletter. I am so glad that we were able to get Mike.
I know.
I have been a fan of his newsletter for so long, which is how I became
Right.
aware of him. He offers such great insights to artists and gives real world examples of who did what, how they did it, why this is particularly effective, and what you as an artist can learn from that particular situation. And as the conversation will reveal, I mean, he has some really great insights into talent and the process that you need to be doing. One of the things that I thought was the most interesting that not many people have ever spoken about before was he spoke about, before diving into the industry as an artist, that you should develop hands-on digital marketing expertise, that you'll be far more effective and independent if you have some sort of knowledge of independent marketing in terms of digital marketing, like the formats and the platforms, basic knowledge, rather than just coming into it thinking it's all about your music. There's a little more to learn. And I can't ever recall somebody saying you should do this before launching music. And I thought that was a really interesting concept.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Rich. One of the other areas that I liked about this conversation was writing everything down. Don't rely solely on verbal agreements or memory. Create paper trails, emails, recap texts to ensure everyone is on the same page, and protect yourself in business deals. And this is such an important thing that, this is like gold that he's offering in this conversation, that you do need to keep paper trails. You do need to keep everything that's being said or done, because these are things that could come to haunt you later on in your career. So I think it's something that's very vital advice.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And, he also spoke about how he comes from the real estate world and how he learned that, which was such an important factor in his own professionalism.
And with that, insiders, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured conversation with Michael Epstein.
Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys so much. I'm excited to be here.
We're very excited to talk to you. You were somebody that we discovered online. You have that wonderful newsletter, and your insights into marketing and working with artists and the business of today really attracted us in terms of, this is somebody who really has their finger on the pulse, and we wanted to reach out. I want to sort of go back with you to the beginning. In your previous career, you were in real estate, I believe, which is a profession where you faced very, very different challenges. What did that experience teach you or help you bring to the music industry?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And shout out to you both for that research, because very, very few people know that. So I think the first thing it taught me was just how to juggle multiple things happening at one time. I think I was not really a project manager per se. I was more of like an assistant, but I think it really taught me how to navigate and juggle multiple projects with their own timelines and their own personnel, and just how to just juggle multiple things happening at one time, because every realtor had, multiple listings, and within those listings would be multiple marketing plans and showings and different things that were happening and paperwork. So I think the first thing it taught me was how to juggle multiple things. And the second thing it taught me was, in real estate, it's really important to write everything out, to write things down, to put things in email, to put things in writing. And I think that's one of the other things that may seem small, but that I really took with me as like a big lesson. I think that when you're in music, it can feel so chaotic that you're just running and gunning and you're just trying to get things done. And it's really easy to not leave like a tangible paper trail. So that's one of the other things that I really tried to bring with me, is just to slow down and put things in writing, whether it's recapping conversations via phone calls or sending an email or sending a text message, but just to ensure that, every party understands kind of what's going on and that everything is super clear.
Yeah. We asked this question because the answer you gave is so insightful, because a lot of those same values and concepts and practices, I think, are really important for artists who need to take control of their own careers to hear and most importantly, to have.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the other really big similarities is that within real estate, you are in the, client service business, right? Like, you're dealing with people, you're dealing with clients. They're looking to buy their house or sell their house, and you're in the business of helping other people. And I think music is very similar in that if you're working at a company that's in the business of helping to break artists and grow artists, you're in a very similar role, right? Like, you're essentially helping the client. It's just a different type of client. So yeah, I think it might not seem like it on the outside, but I think that there's definitely a ton of, similarities.
Yeah, I agree. Really great having you on the show, Michael. I wanted to ask you, you emphasize learning tangible digital marketing skills before even stepping into the industry. And I'm curious, what specific skills or platforms do you believe are currently undervalued, but incredibly powerful for artists to start this process?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me, Twitter was really important. Twitter for me was really how I got my start. It was as a fan of, hip hop music. I think Twitter was really the main platform at that time. This is probably back in 2014, like probably 2012 to 2014, where the online conversation around hip hop was really Twitter based. I don't know if Instagram had even came out yet. If it did, it was still really early. TikTok was not around. If it was ByteDance. But Twitter was the sort of predominant conversation around hip hop. So for me, Twitter was how I networked with people. It was how I met people. It was how I learned about music. It was how I learned about the industry. And I actually, to this day, I still think Twitter is an underserviced platform. I think a lot of artists are obsessed with Instagram and with TikTok. And I know that TikTok on some level has the biggest impact in terms of streaming consumption and an artist's growth. And it can have the biggest impact in terms of having a song go viral or having a piece of content do well. But I think Twitter is an opportunity for an artist to engage in that conversational element that they can't really do on some of the other platforms. So I'd say Twitter is super underrated. I think Instagram and TikTok are both equally as important. And then obviously, no doubt that any success on TikTok will probably have more impact on a song or an artist catalog than any other platform.
I couldn't agree with you more. You and I are cut from the same cloth. I had a lot of success with Twitter, I think at the same exact period of time that you're talking about, that 2012 on. And I do agree with you that it's totally underserved. And I think it's a platform that a lot of artists don't realize the true value and power of. That's how I built a huge audience for my previous project. I'm an artist, and I built a huge audience based on that platform because it was a real one-to-one where you can get kind of feedback right away. Different style of music. I was more in the hard rock metal world. You were in the hip hop space, but I couldn't agree with you more. I think still today, the value of that platform, a lot of people don't take advantage of.
That's awesome, because in general, I feel like that the genre that you're in I have not seen a lot of that on that platform. So not only were you maybe part of a smaller pool of people, but you were super early.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome.
Let me ask you, Michael, for artists who are just starting out, they're just beginning their careers, releasing their first tracks of music, what specific elements should absolutely be in place before putting any music out, from your perspective as a marketing expert?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's really important to understand, really, I guess, trying to answer the question of why should people care, right? Why should people care? And I think part of that answer is what is your brand and what's the brand that you're building? And if you're fortunate enough to have people discover you online and they go back to your social media profiles, what is the brand that's there waiting for them? I think part of the issue that so many artists face with is that they just chuck out music online. If they're fortunate enough to have something cut through, they might gain a little bit of attention and become visible, but there's no brand. There's nothing that a fan could land on and be able to sort of take away. And then as a result, they're just that one song or those two songs. There's nothing that really builds the actual career of that artist. So I think it's really important for an artist to focus on what their brand represents and what their brand stands for, and to focus on building that first. You can do that in tandem with putting out music, but I do think that's really important. And that kind of encompasses everything from what do your photos look like? What do your videos look like? What type of font are you using on your artwork? Are your photos in black and white? Are they very vibrant, very colorful? What type of content are you making? What can people say about you from your brand when looking at your social media? I think that's really important.
Yeah, we always talk about on this show that in the era that we live in today, where music is essentially something that we get whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want, on any number of devices we want, on any number of platforms, wherever we are in the world, and we get it for free, that the values around what we will listen to have totally changed. And you've just articulated one of the main elements of what that equation looks like. And it's not even something that I think culture is aware of as a consumer, but what you're saying is so important in terms of that identity. Who are you? What are you about? Where are you coming from? What do you stand for? Are questions that I think are very, very relevant in a world where, where do you even begin with 150,000 tracks a day? And if you can't answer the questions that you're posing and talking about and concepts, then, perhaps you need to be going back to the drawing board. And when you can answer them, that's when that journey should begin.
Totally. And I think one thing I would add too is that it's really hard to find the answers to all of those questions. And you don't necessarily need to have all of the answers before starting that journey of starting to put out music. And some artists never find those answers, right? There's some artists that, especially in rap, they just make really good music, and there's nothing else tethered to their brand besides that. There's nothing else that's interesting about where they're from or what they do or how they look.
Right.
And that's the only thing. And they never have that extra narrative or that extra storyline as hard as they try. So yeah, it's a really hard thing to figure out. And I think it's even harder nowadays because there's so many artists on the internet that you're basically looking to find the thing about yourself that can cut through the noise. And if you don't have it, then you have to manufacture it. And then if you're going to manufacture it, how do you do it in a way that feels genuine?
Absolutely. Yeah. Michael, the artist Russ has a saying about being late to your own party when holding on to music too long. And I'm curious, how do you decide the right time to release a song without overthinking it? And have you ever experienced a track unexpectedly opening doors when you finally shared it?
It's a really good question. My perspective on that is that I agree. And I think there's no right or wrong answer. There's no blueprint. There's no formula. I think everybody is just trying to make the best decisions that they can with the information that they have. And I think one of the ways that I think about it is like an artist has a pool of music, and, if you have a song that you think is incredible, that is potentially life-changing, but you don't have an audience yet, maybe you hold off on putting that song out for at least a little bit while you put out other music to hopefully build that audience. But at some point, you probably shouldn't sit on that song for too long. But I do believe that like putting out music acts as a magnet for opportunities, and putting out music can act as a bridge. Like one song may not be the song that changes everything, but it could be the song that acts as the bridge to the next song, which might change everything, or the next song that opens that next door. And to answer the second part of your question, I definitely have seen that. I've seen, I don't think anyone knows anymore what song is going to be the song to, impact somebody's catalog or to potentially change someone's life. I think as an audiophile, you might be able to listen to music and like have a really good sense of what song on an album is maybe like the best song sonically or can resonate with the most amount of people. But in the current day and age, I don't think anybody can confidently say, I can guarantee you that this is going to be the song that's going to do better than all the other songs, because no one really knows. Fans really dictate that. So yeah, I think that happens a lot. And I think it just speaks to like, it's okay to hold on to something for a short period of time, but at some point you're going to have to put it out.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have to commit. Well, Michael, I want to drill down on something that, we started our conversation with, but I think you could probably shed a little more insight on. You recently wrote a great article entitled "The Power of Saying No," which I think every artist should read. Do you have a personal matrix or system for deciding where to invest your time and energy in building your career? And if so, how did you develop it? I think this is a very important point to artists today.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it comes from being at the other side of that spectrum and having a point in my life where I was saying yes to everything. I was saying yes to like going out to all of the events and all the networking events and the mixers, and saying yes to every dinner and this and that. And eventually I just truthfully got burnt out, and I I realized that I wasn't as productive or as efficient as when I started to say no to things and I started to preserve my energy. And like I'll say this in kind of a funny way, like as I'm getting older, I'm 35, my energy for things is not what it was, right? So I'm not staying out as late, I'm waking up earlier. It's a lot easier to say no, but those lessons of saying no really came from saying yes way too much and realizing that I was burning myself out and I was kind of fragmenting all my efforts. So I don't know if I have like a personal matrix, but I kind of just try to identify at the beginning of every year, what are my goals for that year? And then like reverse engineer those goals by quarter and then by month. And at the top of every month and really every week, like every Sunday, I just look at my goals for that week. And if something does not align with those goals, then I just don't do it.
Yeah, I asked the question because when I was reading the article, I thought, this is a philosophy and a consciousness that I think a lot of artists, especially today, don't often give enough thought or energy to. And it's one that can easily, in the, melee of every day and, singles and work and social media and yada, 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 get caught up in and saying yes to so many things where you lose the plot. And, this was your article kind of like really brought that into, sharp focus that I think is something of great value to artists that, you don't want to lose that track. You want to keep on that track and understand what it is that you're doing. What are your goals? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 6 months or in a year or, rather than it all just being random and your life is just one big trying to catch up with everything. That can, that kind of, I guess, rat race can be very unproductive after a certain point.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's important or it's not that it's important. One way that artists might be able to think about this is like different seasons call for different things, right? And artists what might be helpful is they can think about what season are they in their life, right? And think about what is the most important thing for those seasons. And those seasons could last as little as a week or 2 weeks, or they could last as long as a couple months or even years. But I think it's important for artists to think about like where they're at in their life and based on what they want out of that season or that period of life, what are the important things? So for example, if it's like, hey, I'm an artist and I just want to focus on making music and building my catalog of songs, then I don't really need to say yes to all of the other things that come with being an artist right now. Maybe I can just focus on just making great music. And once I like experience and get through this phase of life, I can then focus on the other things. But if you don't have that North Star or you don't really know what you're working towards, you're kind of just floating in the wind. And that's where I feel like it can get murky, where you feel like you have to say yes to everything because you don't have any guidelines that are kind of helping to sort of, guide you and sort of navigate you.
Precisely.
Many artists quit after just a few releases when they don't see immediate results. But as you know, I don't have to tell you, success often requires 6 to 12 months of consistent effort. And I have a two-parter for you on this. How do you know when it's truly time to pivot versus simply staying the course? And how can artists stay motivated during that valley of despair when progress feels slow or invisible?
Man, those are two really good questions. The first one is, to be honest with you, there's no real way to know. The way that I know in anything that I do in life is I think you need to really give something like at least 6 months to 8 months to really know if the thing that you're doing is like working or not working. So for an artist, it could be 6 months of like releasing music and content. It could be 6 months of, taking vocal lessons. It could be 6 months of whatever that thing is. But I do genuinely believe that anything less than 6 to 8 months, it's going to be hard to know if you've given it enough effort, and you likely have not given yourself enough evidence to know if it's working or not working. Like part of the benefit of doing it for 6 to 8 months minimum is you start to be able to see patterns of things and give your brain evidence of like what is actually happening to be able to know if it's working or not. And assuming that you're doing that and you find that it's not working as fast as you would like to. The other alternative, I guess, is like what can kind of help to motivate artists is like what's the other alternative? Like what's the option? Is like you quit and you stop, and then it's like, well, that's not any better. Like quitting and stopping is not any better than staying at the thing, but it not going as fast as you like, like as long as you're in the game and you're trying, you still have a chance. Once you completely quit and you stop, that percentage starts to sort of decrease all the way down because you're not even playing. So yeah, for anyone listening that's like in that valley and they're trying and it's not working, make sure that you're giving yourself ample time before feeling like it's not working. And if you are giving it time and you're on month 6, 7, or 8 and it's not working, it's important to maybe then start to see if you can observe patterns of why it's not working and tweak some of those things as opposed to just totally, quitting and just falling back.
Hey, insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured conversation. Stay tuned because we've got so much value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey there, insiders. Are you dreaming of making it big as a musician, artist, or industry pro? Well, at MUBUTV, we offer personalized coaching to help you turn that dream into reality.
Think of us as your personal guides, helping you polish your songs, craft your story, find your fans, and grow your social media like a pro.
No matter where you are in your journey, we've got the tools and strategies to take you higher. From live gigs to branding and marketing, our coaching is all about you.
Choose what fits your budget, from single sessions to value-packed bundles.
Start with a free 15-minute discovery call today at book.mubutv.com. Your music career is waiting. Remember why you started making music? That feeling of passion, hope, and longing, wanting someone to hear your story?
But chasing success can be confusing. Who do you reach out to? When? How do you avoid mistakes that could close doors?
At MUBUTV, we believe every artist deserves a clear path forward. That's why we've created 3 free guides that cover the essential skills every musician needs.
How to contact A&R executives with confidence. How to attract an artist manager who gets you. How to pitch your music for film and television placements.
These aren't just tips. They're blueprints designed for artists who want more than just dreams. They want results.
If you're listening right now on this podcast or watching on YouTube, look in the description below. Download these free guides that will change how you approach your music career forever.
Don't wait. Your future fans are waiting.
Hi, this is Grayson Sanders, co-founder and CEO at Chordal. Are you an insider? I am. Subscribe now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we live in such a quick that people just want things like happening yesterday. And this is like a lifelong thing when you're getting into music. This is not something that's going to happen in 6 to 12 months. It may be the next 10 years of your life if you're truly committed to it. So it's an interesting oxymoron to this question, because just me from thinking it from the musician perspective of you're going to walk away from this and you're not getting any results that you think, and you're just going to walk away. Like you said, you're just kind of selling yourself short. It's like taking the data, let's make some tweaks and then either pivot or, make whatever necessary changes.
Yeah, and there was a really good interview that just started to circulate pretty recently. I think it was by Dominic Fike. And Dominic Fike said something along the lines of the only difference in the artist that makes it and is well known or is able to earn a living from making music and art and the artist that doesn't is that they just never quit. They didn't stop. And that means that they could be on year 5, 10, 15, 20. It could take a very, very long time, but the difference in the artist who quote unquote makes it, which everybody has like their own definition of that, and that means different things, but basically the artist who is able to earn money from their art and who's able to somewhat achieve the level that they want, the difference in them and the other person is like they just didn't quit. So I think it's important to, as people embark on that journey, to really think about like, how can I set myself up, play this a long time, to be an artist for, decades, for 10, 20, 30 years, as opposed to I'm going to put out one album. And if that one album doesn't stick, I feel like I failed.
Right.
Yeah, you've got to be in this for a career. I wanted to ask you, Michael, you've spoken and written about how internships can often open doors, but also how many people usually a lot of times you said they waste that opportunity. Talk to us about what separates someone who turns an internship into a job from someone who just fades out after 3 months.
Yeah, man, it's a really good question. I mean, when I look back to some of my favorite people that started out as interns and then transitioned to, full-time staff or even part-time, it was number one, providing value, right? It was providing value. It was maybe having an area of expertise that the company didn't have. So they were filling in some sort of value gap that wasn't already there. So that could be anything from like, digital marketing, or maybe there was something that they were really good at that company had not done yet. And they were able to bring value in that way. So I think the first step is like bringing value. And I think the easiest way to do that nowadays is like expertise in a certain area. And I think because so much of what happens in music is online, that could be the best entry point, is like really taking the time to become an expert at a certain niche online and trying to help translate that expertise to support and sort of help that label or that company. So I think the first thing is just providing value. And the second thing is, it sounds simple or stupid, but making everyone else's lives easier. Like their manager, their boss, the person that they are like reporting into, how can you make that person's life easier? Like, is it, turning in projects faster than they were asked for? Is it turning things in before deadlines? Is it going above and beyond project asks? Is it doing more research than what somebody asked you to do? Is it proactively looking at what the roster is doing and without being asked, ideating on different concepts to help market artists and pitching them? I think there's a lot of ways that people can create value. And I think the difference in the people that maximize internships and don't are a lack of value and just a lack of, proactivity.
Indeed. Michael, you've worked up close and personal with hundreds of artists in your career at this point. What do you feel is the number one thing that holds artists back from success in their own careers?
Proactivity. Just being proactive, creating opportunities for themselves, not waiting on other people, truly being the captain of their own ship and just not waiting around. I know artists that don't have a manager and they create more opportunities for their career and themselves than artists that do have a manager, because they're not waiting on anybody. That to me is like the single number one biggest characteristic or personality trait that I think is like the big differentiator of like artists that create opportunities, that don't wait on other people, and they're just generally speaking proactive.
Yeah, which I think goes back to your element of commitment and focus and really making sure. I mean, we always talk on this channel about how one of the most important things is you have to define what success is for you, but you have to really be certain that if a life in music is to be yours, you have to commit to it as a way of life. It's not something that will happen in a year or 18 months. And if it doesn't happen, well, I'll go drive a truck. I mean, that's an important factor. And what you just said, I think, is about the people that achieve that and do what you just articulated are those who are completely committed to their career.
Yeah. And without sounding rude or cold to the sensitivities of being an artist and how difficult it is, right? But like, just being honest, there's a reason why such a small percentage of artists make it. There's a reason why 1% of artists make it. It's because it's really hard, right? It's like, as you guys know, it is objectively one of the hardest professions you could ever try and do. And there's a reason why so few people are able to make it. So I do actually think there is a little bit of like a misinterpretation of how fast the internet moves and this instant gratification world that everybody lives in. They just assume that they're entitled to success after a couple months or 1 year because they go on the internet and they think that like they're looking at their peers that maybe have, done something and they think that they're entitled to. Being an artist and making a living from it is like objectively one of the hardest things anybody could possibly do. So yeah, it's really hard, and you got to really be in it for like decades. Like, think in terms of decades, not just months and not just years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm always telling my students in the classes I teach, go to columbiarecords.com, go to interscoperecords.com or rcarecords.com, look at the roster of 40, 50, 60 acts. Yeah, you're going to recognize, 2 or 3 of the big names, but then start looking at all of those other people who you don't have a clue who they are. And, those are the people that got signed to the major label. Those are the people that got the deal, made the record. And look at the issue that they're having with, they're in the same boat you are. They've just got maybe, a company behind them, but it's just as difficult in this day and age to build that. And it's not all like, oh, well, thank God I got signed. I'm glad that part of my life's over. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and there's no magic pill, right? It's like, as you guys both know, there's no magic button. There's no like secret serum that an artist can buy to like jumpstart their life or their art. It's like, you just, you have to try as hard as you can. You have to be proactive. You have to make the best art you can, and you have to stick with it. But there's no magic pill.
Yeah, there isn't. Michael, I want to ask you, throughout your life, have there been any books or films or documentaries that you have found to be particularly inspirational that you could recommend?
Yeah, it's a good question. Phil Knight, CEO of Nike, or the founder of Nike, Shoe Dog, I think it's called.
Shoe Dog, okay.
Shoe Dog, yes. Shoe Dog is by Phil Knight. That is a really great book. Donald Passman, obviously, for anybody looking to learn about the industry and the business, Donald Passman, all you need to know about the music business.
Right.
From Good to Great.
That's a great book.
Is a great book by James Collins, and talks about like what separates, good people from great people and good companies from great. So just off the top of my head, I think those are a couple books that were really transformative.
Those are all great suggestions. Yeah, we'll definitely put those in the show notes. What advice would you offer to artists and future music business professionals who are truly committed to building a career in music? What would you tell them?
Man, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Really like evaluate why you're doing it and making sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, because you love it and because you care, not because it looks glamorous or it looks cool. And if you are doing it for the right reasons, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, both as an artist and as somebody working in the business. And what I mean by that is, like, as an artist, you are inherently putting yourself out there through your music and through your content and your visuals. But as somebody working in the business, don't be afraid to go out to events by yourself and network and, put yourself in what might not be the most comfortable shoes, or like what I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, not everybody is a, social butterfly. Not everybody likes having to push themselves to go and meet people, but your network is your net worth. And it's really important to push yourself and push your comfort zone and get out there. So, I think for artists and, people working in the business, I think it's important to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I would also recommend to have a plan and a vision for where you see yourself. I think that is something a lot of people don't have. A lot of artists don't have it. And I think it's really important. Like, as an artist, where do you see yourself in 12 months, 24 months? Where do you want to be? What are the actionable steps to get there? And if you're working in the industry, what type of a mark do you want to leave? Like, what type of a company do you want to work for? What type of work do you want to do? Do you want to work at a record label? Do you want to work in the touring business or in the live show business? Do you want to do management? Really important to have an understanding of where you want to go and create your own North Star, because no one is going to make that for you.
Yeah, very, very good advice. Michael, how can people who want to work with you reach you? Is it through a website or through socials? What's the best way?
Man, social media is probably the best way. I keep it really simple. HeyMike, just Hey Mike on Twitter and on Instagram. I don't post much on Instagram, but I'm on there. So if anybody enjoyed this interview, they are welcome to DM me there.
Okay, and you also have a newsletter, I believe, as well.
I do. Yeah, I've had my own newsletter. It's also called Hey Mike. And yeah, I just, I share insights about like being in the industry and navigating the industry and growing. And I don't think there's any contact form on there, but for anybody who wants to get in touch, DM is probably the best way. And for anybody looking to learn about the industry, they can check that out too.
Wonderful. We'll put the link in there to subscribe.
Right.
Michael, we cannot thank you enough for taking the time to do this. This was a really informative and interesting conversation. We're very, very grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you both for even having me. This was awesome, and I'm honestly honored to be here.
Thank you. So glad that we were able to get Michael for the show.
I know.
So glad. I mean, he had such interesting and compelling and important things to say regarding marketing and regarding the contribution that he's making toward what it actually takes to build a career. One of the more powerful things that I thought he said in this conversation was and I think the quote was, there's a reason why 1% of artists make it. It's because it's really, really hard. Being an artist and making a living from it is like objectively one of the hardest things anybody could possibly do. Think in terms of decades, not just months and not just years. My God, truer words were never spoken. And I think so often people think of music or a career in music as, I just do this, this, and this, and it will just happen.
Right.
Sometimes it does take years.
Yes.
Literally years,
Decades.
Exactly. When you look at some of these big successes, I think we've talked about Bruno Mars on the show before,
Right.
who had a record deal before he was ever, became popular and lost it.
Right.
And who
Katy Perry, another one that had lost two record deals.
Two record deals.
Right, exactly.
Before she ever put her debut album out, And Bruno's been working since he was 7 years old.
Right.
Literally on the live circuit. That's why he is such a phenomenal entertainer, is because he had that skill long before he ever became famous as a recording artist. Even then, he spent years
honing in the craft
and having to write songs for other people to prove himself.
Kind of like Sia is another story.
Yeah, exactly. Started, never ever succeeded initially as a recording artist.
Right. But then had massive success as a songwriter.
As a songwriter for other people. Very, very successful.
Yeah. One of the other areas that I loved about this conversation was the undervalued digital marketing skill platforms. Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, I will always call it Twitter myself, was really important. Twitter is an opportunity for artists to engage in that conversational element that they can't create on some of the other platforms. So I'd say Twitter is super underrated, and I couldn't agree more, because Twitter was a big factor with my previous project and how we built that. You know that story, Rich, because you had me in your class a few times talking about that whole experiment. And Twitter to me is one of the most undervalued platforms, I think, in all of social media. To me, it's like an instant connection with your audience that they tell you in real time.
Immediacy. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like a focus group. That's what it was. Focus group. I got that you have right there at your fingertips. And that's how I built that audience, based on that. They can hear the music in real time. We could try out merch ideas, whether they like them or not. And so that to me was crucial, and an area that people need to really kind of focus on. I'm not saying on Twitter, but whatever your platform is, you really need to focus on that one and become an expert in that and build your audience from there, and then branch out to other ones as you master these platforms.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that one of the more important things, and he talks about this as well, is making sure, if you're an artist, that you're doing this for the right reasons, not because it looks glamorous or it's really cool, but that you have to, and as somebody working in the business, also don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to go out and do the work. Remember, if this is going to be your life, not just, a temporary thing or an event, then you got to make it your life, push yourself out of your comfort zone to get there.
Hey, Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top-rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes and our space. You can also find us at social media at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter X, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Music Business Insider video series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. Theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Music Business Insider Podcast.